Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Form with the resuming of racing at Santa Anita. Some interesting stakes races on their Saturday card. In the first stakes race, graded stakes race is race number 5, the Grade 3 Kona Gold, $100,000 purse in the distance of 6.5 furlongs on the main track for 4-year-olds and upward. We'll take a look at this field. This is actually going to kick off their 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6 jackpot wager. A field of 6, but it's interesting. You're going to see horses such as Brickyard ride, who his resume is just absolutely sensational. Anarchist, who's been kind of knocking on a second victory in those last several efforts, as well as Sunrise Journey, who looks to be kind of an up-and-coming type. Who, I say up-and-coming, he's an 8-year-old with 15 wins, but his last 2 have kind of earned him a right at a graded stakes race try. So we're going to see him in this race on Saturday. But we'll start with the field here with the number 1, Anarchist. 5-2 on the morning line. I alluded to the fact that this horse has been kind of just knocking on a victory. And we'll take a look at his effort 2 starts back, which is his most recent effort on the dirt, 6 furlongs in that allowance optional claiming event. He's the number 7 in this field. And just looking at his trip, Frankie Dettori was aboard him. You can see him here towards the outside of this first flight of horses. And Spirit of McKenna just already had the jump on him and just is able to kick clear in here. But I like the grittiness from Anarchist. Very gritty in the stretch and determined, and just can't really win the game of catch me if you can. And it bodes well for him that Spirit of McKenna comes back to win next time out in a nice race and in pretty impressive fashion as well. So we have seen Anarchist once since this effort. I showed the dirt effort. Most recently raced at 6.5 furlongs on the turf. And he was second again against a field of 7. He got a 97 buyer speed figure. It doesn't really seem like he cares what surface he runs at, or runs on, I should say. He was an outsider in that race. He was 11-1, where we saw him. He's 5-1, 2 starts back. But again, very consistent type. He's just 1 for 7 in his career, though. He's got those 4 second-place finishes, so he's going to need to do a bit more to get the job done. But I'm really curious to now see him at 6.5 on the dirt. Last time we saw him at 6.5 on the dirt, he ran a really big second, only missed by half a length. So I'm thinking even just a touch more distance on the main track should help his chances. The number 2, Sunrise Journey. Such a hard-knocking horse. 15 for 44 lifetime, an 8-year-old son of Good Journey, who, as I mentioned, not that he's not seasoned. He's had a lot of races under his belt, and they've tried him here and there in stakes races, but he's going to get that graded stakes try after having 2 back-to-back wins that were extremely impressive. And we're going to look at the first of those 2 back on March 12th at Santa Anita in their 8th race. It was just a $50,000 claiming event, but the way he's able to open up on this field is very impressive. When you look at the favorite in here, ends up being second best. I Got No Money, who's the number 1, I believe was 9-5 in this spot. Sunrise Journey just is able to really kick on here and stride home nicely. It's not like the other horses weren't trying, but the fact that he had something left in reserve, I think, speaks really highly of him. He was able to do something similar in his next start where he was won by over 2 lengths. I thought this was maybe visually a bit more impressive than the other win, but he's trending in the right direction. He has speed. The one thing that's going to go against him in this spot is there's other speed in here, but he's hard to knock off those efforts. His last 2 at Santa Anita and just in general, 4 starts on the main track, 2 wins and 2 seconds. So I would expect him to be forwardly placed on Saturday. The number 3, Arminyak, has been a horse who's been a bit of a head scratcher. I mean, you just go down the page and kind of look at his trajectory. He was able to win at second asking while in the barn of Bob Baffert. He didn't race well in the San Felipe. He didn't really race very well in the Santa Anita Derby, and they've tried different spots with him. They actually sent him to Preakness, the La Jolla, and he just hasn't been able to get the job done. So the big thing that they're going to try with him is cutting him back in distance. He's been racing most recently at 1 mile and a 16th and a mile. He's going to cut back to that 6.5 furlongs, which, knowing that he's raced well at the past at shorter distance, it should help him. The other thing, though, even maybe more interesting, is they're going to take blinkers off. And if you go down the page, the last time that he actually won a race was without blinkers. So he's been able to win with them and win without them. Just seems like they're making a ton of changes. He does have a bullet drill coming into this race on April 16th, a very sharp 46-2 for 4 furlongs, and it was the fastest of 116 workers. I'm just wondering if they're able to, do something different with him. He's only had that 1 race now as a 4-year-old, and you have to think, kind of looking at his races, they know what they're going to do. They're going to take those blinkers off and cut him back in distance. The number 4, Brickyard Ride, is the morning line favorite. He's 12 for 24 in his career, and he's got 9 wins locally on the main track, but he has been able to perform well on the turf. And we're actually going to look at his most recent effort, which was on the grass in a grade 3 event, going 6.5 furlongs on the downhill. And in the end of this race, he was forwardly placed, as he typically always is, assuming he gets out of the gate. And he's the number 1 here. He's trying to be game here on the inside, but Motorius, I should say, ends up getting the job done in here, was favored in the spot. And this was Brickyard's ride's first race since May. So I definitely think he needed the race. I still think he ran considerably, well. And you look at his most recent race, it was in last year's Kona Gold. I just think he's a different animal on the dirt. I think he needed the race, so I'm expecting big things second off that freshening. And Juan Hernandez has just done tremendous work while aboard him. So Brickyard ride does look tough in this spot. To his outside is the number 5, Positivity, out of the Doug O'Neill barn. He's an interesting horse. We haven't seen him in just over a year. Last time we saw him was at Maidan in a grade 3 event back on March 5th of 2022. And his race 2 back at Maidan back in February of 2022 was a respectable effort. He didn't really race well in those graded events. You go down the page, though, he's had some nice efforts in California. He is 2 for 4 at Santa Anita, but for me, it is a really long layoff. But you have to think his connections put him in this spot. So it's intriguing to see that, just knowing that they must have some confidence in him. And he was second in his last appearance at Santa Anita behind Brickyard ride. Then rounding out the field is the outsider, the number 6, Trump, who's coming in from Turf Paradise. His last 3 efforts have been there. He's won all of them. He's done it quite impressively. He's done it in different sort of styles. He's been able to close from mid-pack. He's been able to do it in kind of gate-to-wire fashion. So the way he's won his races is really impressive, but this is a huge jump up in class. The races that he's coming out of are softer, and they've been some quick times, so that's at Turf Paradise. So it's going to be interesting to see how his form carries over to Santa Anita, and he seems to be training well for this. Victor Espinoza has the call, but it's a wild card. It's going to be a very different sort of circumstances for him. And he's very lightly raced for 5 years old, just those 4 starts. So that is the field of 6. I was torn actually between 2 horses in here, the 1 Anarchist and the 4 Brickyard ride. And I had to go with Brickyard ride. He's kind of the model for consistency. I thought his first effort of 2023 was respectable. It was on the grass. I expect him to not only move forward, getting back on the dirt, but making that second start of 2023. And his just record at Santa Anita has been so impressive. He's very, very quick on paper. He's the quickest when he wants to be. So I went with Brickyard ride here. The 1, though, Anarchist, I think could get a really nice trip just sitting off the pace. Ramon Vasquez has been aboard him once before and is familiar with him. He's going to climb back aboard him. And I just think even though he has the rail, I'm just looking at his running style, I think he's going to get a great trip just off the pace, and the pace will be hot. And then from there, I thought you could go basically to anyone else in the field. I went to the 2 Sunrise Journey, who I mentioned has just been visually impressive in those last 2 efforts. And then the 5 Positivity, who we haven't seen in a long time. I just thought it was, interesting to see the connections make his return to the races in this spot. But for me, in the Kona Gold, all eyes on the number 4 Brickyard ride. Good luck.